please take a seat. Oh, they got to take a picture before they take a seat. Oh, yeah, well, I won't be in that one. All right. Before we begin, Brianna, I'm curious, is it been continuously running? All right, so I'll watch one video. All right, just want to know. Well, yeah, we're divided. It'll be easy. All right. Yeah, just want the door closed. Welcome to our session today. We are so glad to have Mr. Lurie here with us. This is a VVCU sponsored event. VVCU stands for Visitacion Valley Community Unity. This is a group of leaders and stakeholders in Visitacion Valley. We come together to give voice to Visitacion Valley, considering it has been neglected for so long. We help people organize and bring solutions to those decision makers that can help bring about change. So that's VVCU. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your presence. I want to make sure your mic is on. Well, I don't know if it's on. No, it's not on. There you go.
Okay.
All right. So I am going to ask that nobody applaud as he's answering questions. I'm sure the answers are going to be just wonderful, but please hold your applause. Ask everyone, please, to turn off your cell phone or put it on silent. I'm also going to ask Mr. Lurie, please do not refer negatively to any of the other candidates. The questions will really regard you and what you plan to do.
Great.
And give you an opportunity right now, if you like, to make an opening statement.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate, Pastor, you having me and you all having me out to Viz Valley. I was born and raised here in San Francisco. I'm looking at these two beautiful kids here, and I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have a 10-year-old son. My wife and I are proud to be raising them here in San Francisco. I've always been proud to call San Francisco my home. But I have to tell you, I'm worried about the direction of our city. It's one of the reasons that I'm running. I honestly feel like we need accountable leadership. We need fresh ideas, and we need someone who has a track record, a proven track record of getting big things done. You're going to hear a lot about me in this race. My parents got divorced when I was 2. My mom remarried my stepfather, who was part of the Levi Strauss family. And he helped lead that company for a very long time. And I grew up in and around that company. Always took care of its workers. Was one of the first companies to desegregate its factories in the South. Took care of its LGBTQ workers long before it was required by law. I saw a company do right by its employees and its workers, and that's what I grew up in and around. Pastor, my dad was a rabbi here in San Francisco at Temple Emmanuel on Arguello. My dad became the head of the Jewish Community Federation in the 80s and the 90s, and he helped tens of thousands of Jews flee persecution from places like Ethiopia and Russia. So I watched my dad take care of people he would never meet in his entire life. My mom was always focused on early childhood education because we know when a child gets off to the right start, they do better their entire lives. Cross-Cultural on Leland Avenue is an organization that my family and I have been supporting for the last 12 years. Wu Yi, which is part of the new development here, another organization that we've been supporting for almost 30 years here in San Francisco. We always believe in early childhood. So I'll get into Tipping Point, an organization I started in 2005 to focus on tackling issues of poverty throughout this region: housing, education, employment, early childhood education. My whole career has been about serving community, lifting people up, providing opportunities to every single person. And so really proud of that track record. I could go on and on, but I ran Super Bowl 50, brought that here, got housing built downtown, but I'll stop there.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you brought up tipping point, so
Yeah.
let's talk about that right now.
Okay.
Specifically, how tipping point, if at all, impacts Visitation Valley, and if you were mayor, how it would impact Visitation Valley.
We,
Well, I'm sorry,
yes,
if
sir.
you could just kind of describe it, because everybody may not know what tipping
Yeah, of
point
course.
is.
No, I don't think many do. So in 2005, I, along with Ronnie Lott and a couple of others, we started Tipping Point Community. We wanted to do grant making differently. We wanted to focus on serving nonprofits that were doing very good work, but we would write grant goals into every contract that we had with nonprofits in the areas of housing, education, employment, and early childhood education, those four. We believed in bringing the best of the business world to help those groups do their work more efficiently, more effectively. And every grant we wrote had metrics built into it. So if a group was not performing, we knew, and we could step in and help them get better. But if they weren't working, we would stop funding them and redirect resources to groups that were performing at a high level. And by the way, not just San Francisco, we funded in San Jose, Oakland, in the North Bay, but a third of our groups were here in San Francisco. A lot of work done in the Southeast. One example, not right in Viz Valley, but in Bayview in 2007, I met a young doctor. Her name's Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She became the first Surgeon General in California history. She came and talked to me. She was actually working at CPMC in Presidio Heights at the time, young doctor, and she's like, Daniel, there is one pediatrician for 10,000 kids in Bayview, Hunters Point. One. In that part of town where we were having the conversation, we had coffee, 320 pediatricians for the same number of kids. So, we talk about neglected areas of this city, unheard of. This part of town has often been neglected. And I was like, whatever you want, let's go do this. We started the Bayview Child Health Center, pediatric clinic with a couple of doctors. So we doubled or tripled the number of doctors. And then we quickly realized, okay, families here, we got other issues. We need mental health support. We need abuse prevention support. And so we teamed up with another group led by Katie Albright, and we started something on Evans called the Center for Youth Wellness. Actually, it was on 3rd Street near Evans. And we started the Center for Youth Wellness, a hub for the whole family, for our kids, for our parents, and that's something that I'm really proud that we got built. I talked about early childhood, centers. My family, we've been supporting groups out here for 30 years now through the work of our family's foundation. And whether it's supporting schools in Bayview, Viz Valley, I read the first question. For me, the southeast part of San Francisco has not ever been something that I've forgotten about. Does something need to be done? Yes. I do believe our City Hall neglects community. I think City Hall and our elected leaders neglect a lot of communities in this city and aren't listening to community right now. I hope I'm not betraying the rules of not talking bad about anybody, but I think we have a political class in general that is focused on what's next for them, and they've forgotten about what's next for community.
Okay, so you mentioned Wu Yi that is coming up in the hub.
Yeah.
And that your family's foundation supports that, if I understood correctly.
That's correct. I was out here and wanted to know how we could be helpful early days of this large development.
Okay, but I may have missed it. Besides Wu Yi, are there any plans?
Cross-cultural, the Early Childhood Center on Leland Ave is another organization that we've been supporting for a very long time.
And What is that?
That's an early childhood center.
It's a child care center.
Early childhood education. Yes.
Okay.
So we have a program at my family where we've been focused on, we call them model centers, where you get the best early childhood education. I said this. I learned this from my mom. I learned this from my stepfather when I was, 7, 8, 10 years old. Like early childhood education, there's nothing more important. I mean, education, there's nothing more important. But early childhood, we have to get our kids off to the right start. And so we've been investing for decades and decades on models, like what are great models of early childhood care, early childhood education, making sure that our kids are getting into kindergarten and they are reading on grade level. We know that you can track how a kid's going to do based on their third grade reading levels, how they're doing in kindergarten. And so we're currently funding 10 model centers throughout San Francisco. And one of them is right here on Leland.
How many kids go there, you know?
I don't know the number. I can get that to you though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leland and what? Because I'm not familiar with it.
It's on Leland Cross Cultural
Sure.
Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's on one of the, it's not that long. So
Yeah, it's not that long.
Yeah.
So that's right. And I probably passed it, but didn't realize the work that that was happening right there. So you brought up education. That's a big deal.
Yep.
Particularly since D10 has some of the worst performing schools in the state of California. I believe we made the lowest 10, 2 of them. So my question is, as mayor, you may be limited in what you can do, but I just want to know what your thoughts are in terms of our schools in this area.
Yeah. So I think you're right on, you don't have like explicit control over the school system, but you're the mayor, you got to own it. And that's how I intend to act. This mayor system is a strong and powerful one compared to most mayors' systems across this country. Most mayors would die to have this type of power. And so I will use the megaphone that comes with the office of mayor to speak up and speak out that we got to be focused on student outcomes. We got to take care of our teachers. We got to have our schools have resources. We got to surge resources to it. So I told you about the Center for Youth Wellness and Nadine Burke, and that's kind of how I think about how we should be thinking about our schools. So it's not just the parents it's not just the teachers and the students. It's also the parents. How can the parents think about using the school, especially in communities in the Southeast or in the Mission, you can apply for CalFresh, Medi-Cal. You can get mental health counseling there for your students, and how about for our parents? You have the power of Department of Children, Youth, and Families. That department, hundreds of millions of dollars that go to support our families and kids. Let's use that budget to infuse our schools with more resources. Let's use Muni and make sure that when you as parents are thinking about, okay, where can I send my kid to school? Are they going to go to Lowell or Soda or Mission? Like, can they get there by bus? Can I be sure that they're going to be able to get there on time? And so have rapid Muni lines. And then right now we're sending $200 million a year of the $1.3 billion budget to SFUSD, $200 million from the general fund of SF government. There should be strings attached because the state's basically in a partial takeover of our schools. I'm sure you saw the news about the fact that we're not going to have 10 assistant principals at schools going forward because the state's just like, nope, can't. You don't have the money. Unfortunately, the administrators of our SFUSD have run the school system very, very poorly financially, and so now we're in real trouble. And so let's have some strings attached and make sure that they're spending their money wisely. That comes from, the office of the mayor.
So how would you fix the school board problem? Could you say they kind of run it poorly?
Well, you listen. It's that body's elected by all of us. That's elected by the you know, by you all. And I think we've gotten back to some common sense. You know, let's get out of the renaming business and let's get into the student outcomes business. And I think we all have elected some, you know, more common sense candidates recently. There's going to be 4, as you all know, there's going to be 4 new school board members, or 4 school board members voted on this November. And I think it's on all of us. I mean, if you're in this room and you're listening to, this is the 3rd mayoral candidate tonight. I'm sorry. Second. Oh, it's only second. Okay.
Yeah, only second.
You've had other, Aaron, on
Yeah,
Sunday. Okay.
on Sunday,
So, but if you're in this room, you're engaged, you care, you're involved. So I would encourage you to, you know, vote wisely, and let's not vote for people that are using the school board as the stepping stone for what's next for them. That's what it's become, a political body. And actually, I do give them credit. I do think that they have taken a step back from the brink over the last year. They seem to be working better together. You know, I think financial pressure does that to a body. You know, what happens there is unfortunately what we're seeing not only at supervisor and mayor level, but nationally, where it's really not about serving the people, it's about what's next for them. And so let's elect school board members that care about, you know, those 2 beautiful kids right there, and not thinking about, okay, if I do this and I kowtow to this special interest group, can I get to become a supervisor? You know, like that's what goes through the mind. And I actually do think we have some great candidates.
All right, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, let's change the subject. Let's talk about safety. It looks, I hear you talk about technology and leveraging technology in terms of increasing safety. And so if you would, please tell us your plan. Yeah, let's
Okay.
start right there.
I mean, broad strokes, we can talk about Prop E also, but.
Hold on. Before you do that,
Yes, sir.
It just struck me. Just so you know, people lump Viz Valley into the D10, but we're really separate because a lot of money that goes into Bayview never makes it out here.
Understood.
And a lot of services that they have, it's just like a desert. So as you talk, be aware
Understood.
that what you did in Bayview, it has
I said I know it's next door when I talked about the Center for Youth Wellness, but that's why I brought up WUE right here.
Yes. And the Cultural Center. Yes.
And the Cultural Center.
Yeah. All right. So back to safety.
All right. So safety. No, I hear you. What is going up? I was touring this when it was just dirt. All this great new. I mean, it's coming together. It's looking beautiful. I don't know if everybody agrees, but it's awesome. I stopped at the top of the hill, looked down. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful parts of our city. It is. And yes, you in the questionnaire it talks about forgotten and neglected, but it's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. So, okay, safety. I talk about being for public safety. I think it's incredibly important that we have a fully staffed police department, a fully staffed sheriff's department, and a fully staffed 911 dispatch office. I talk about 911 because I have a friend that a number of months ago, earlier this year, mom had 89, 90 years old, caregiver, was taking care of her, and she was having trouble breathing. They called 911, didn't get it through for 30 minutes. I'm sure we all have stories like this that shouldn't happen in San Francisco, and she passed away. And so I think that all comes into account. I want to get our police out of the business of being our homeless outreach workers and our mental health counselors. I've done 6 ride-alongs with SFPD over the last couple of months, 1 with Ingleside, and learned quite a bit in the 3 hours that I drove around Viz Valley, Potrero, and other parts. It's a huge district. You know better than I. I mean, you get called from one side to the other. It's going to take you 10, 12 minutes if your lights on. That's assuming it's a critical incident and they're going to come to you right away. The average time right now for a police response to the highest level incident is 9.5 minutes.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's too long. Okay? And so I talk about, public safety is my number one priority, because if you don't feel safe, if you feel like you can't call and the police aren't going to come right away, we got real problems. Just full stop. Second, the mental health and drug crisis on our streets. And right now, we have 80% of the calls that police and fire do are mental health and drug crisis response. So I want trained clinicians going out and dealing with those people in crisis or in the throes of addiction. I also don't think every response on the street needs to be with somebody with a badge and a gun. And that's where bad things happen. And so I want more police being taken back from that and walking the beat, getting to know the neighborhoods, walking up and down Leland, or at least patrolling places like the Richmond, the Sunset. In the Richmond, there's 3 patrol cars on a good day for 100,000 people. And so when I'm out there talking to young families, they're scared to walk across the stop sign, the crosswalk, because people blow through stop signs, they blow through red lights. That's happening in every neighborhood. So that's where technology comes in. Red light cameras, speed cameras. We have to send a message. You can't get away with running red lights anymore. We all see it. We all know it. And so that's where I want technology being used. I want community safety cameras. We're using them in the Tenderloin quite a bit. Helps. And so we're down about 400, 500 police officers right now from where a fully staffed police department of 2,000 officers, which we've always had. We're down around near 1,500 or so. And I want a fully staffed police department. And I want the officers that we recruit, I want them to look like the communities they serve. I want them to speak the language of the communities that they serve, because then they're going to be better police people. I also want firefighters, teachers, nurses to be able to live here in San Francisco. And that, I know we'll get into housing, but 80% of our first responders live outside of San Francisco. And you don't police as well neighborhoods that you don't live in. If you got a 2-hour ride home to the North Bay or to Sacramento, which on those ride-alongs, I rode along with probably, 14 officers. Maybe one of them, maybe 2 of them lived in San Francisco. And they're being real. Like, okay, am I going to go down and check on that street? Maybe something happens and I got to spend an hour writing a report, or am I going to just keep going and so I can get home? We're all human.
So you mentioned community protection cameras.
Community safety cameras. Yeah.
Okay. What is that?
Well, so there's a network of cameras specifically in the Tenderloin. Actually, it's pretty bipartisan, at least in our 50 Shades of Blue city, where the last DA that was thrown out of office was supportive of them.
Yeah.
The current DA is supportive of them, where you have cameras that are up on private buildings, public buildings that the police have access to. Not necessarily in real time, but they can go quickly and use them. So down near Union Square, the Union Square bid, the Tenderloin CBD, there's hundreds and hundreds of cameras there to catch people, repeat offenders. Then you got license plate readers that we're spending tens of millions of dollars on to make sure that people that are stealing cars or are coming in to organize retail theft, so we can catch these people coming in. So we have license plate reader cameras all over San Francisco now, where they're going up. One story I heard actually during my Bayview ride along was the 2 officers I was with got a signal that there was a stolen car nearby. They pulled up on the person in the stolen car. They flashed their lights, and this is in an industrial part of Bayview. Flash your lights, the person just took off, because guess what? Police can't chase them. Even in an industrial part, it was 2 a.m., nighttime, there's no one around, can't chase. There's a sense of disorder on the streets of San Francisco. there's a sense that you can come to San Francisco and get away with things, and you're not going to get caught. And so that's where I say we need to use technology. We need officers out walking the beat, out on patrol. We need eyes and ears. And listen, always with police oversight. Lots of reforms have been put in place where officers are wearing body-worn cameras. Everyone to a person said that they liked wearing those now because they know they go into the community and people are filming them. They're like, okay, we're both filming, and they understand they shouldn't be chasing people in crowded corridors. Criminal speech that can lead to bad outcomes for innocent people on the street. And so, the feeling I got from the 12, 14 people that I met and spent hours and hours with was these reforms are working, but they're still not able to do the job that I think many of us want them to be doing, which is catching people that continue and repeatedly are making our communities feel unsafe.
Okay, so you bring up something. I'm hesitant to bring it up, but I have to.
Oh boy,
because yours was the only website. I went on all the websites. Yours was the only website that was off-putting to me, okay. And I couldn't believe it.
Like in general, the whole website off-putting?
No, or this one thing.
Okay.
Yours is the only one that has cookies.
Cookies?
Yeah. So yours is the one that asks about, reject all the cookies, get the cookies. Everybody else, they're not using cookies, but you are using cookies. So
I like chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, well, I wish you were offering that, but you weren't.
I'm gonna look into this. This is
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you think I'm tracking you?
Well, somebody is tracking somebody.
I hit that on every website I go to.
Yeah, but you're the only candidate.
Okay. All right.
That has that.
Can we our team is going to look into that ASAP.
All right.
I thank you for bringing that up to me.
All right. So my question.
Don't hesitate. Listen. I'm running for mayor. Let the tough questions fly.
All right. So, oh boy, get Brianna up here. She'll grill you. Anyway, my question is, all this talk about cameras and license plate readers, etc.
Yep.
How are you balancing that against privacy rights?
Yep. Always, it is a balance, right? I agree, but I mean, you go to an ATM, you take out money. You go to a grocery store, you're on camera. You're on camera everywhere you go now, and I think living in a major city, you're giving up a lot of rights already. Just to be honest, and we should always protect it. That's why the cameras I'm talking about are not necessarily live fed. They're after something happens, and so you can go back and maintain. There are some that are live, and there should be a distinction on that. But right now, I think we have a public safety crisis in our city. I think it behooves us to make sure that we send a message that you can't just come to San Francisco and break into cars, that you can't come in and take what you want from our stores, and you're going to get caught. But there's got to be a balance, and I'm not suggesting that like all rights go out the window. I am not at all, and that's not at all what these community safety cameras do. I don't believe. It catches bad people. So I'd say there's a balance, and I agree with that.
Okay. All right. You say there's a balance, but you haven't really identified it yet. So let me ask this question. In terms of the information and its use, whatever's being filmed, it's
wiped. They hold it for a certain period of time, and then it's all wiped. Right. That is the case, and that's I believe they hold it up for 30 days down at the bid, and I can get back to you on this. Some are 24 hours and some are 30 days.
Right. Yep. Actually, what I'm asking is, if you were mayor, then what is it that you would propose to happen with the information on these cameras?
I think, listen, I would talk to experts in this field, which there are many in San Francisco, and say, what's a timeline so that you know that you can go and check on it, and whether that's 24 hours, whether that's 7 days, whether it's 30 days, but there's got to be a limit on how long you hold the film. I mean, so those are things that I would talk to law enforcement experts about, and also, privacy rights experts about. And there's got to be common ground on that.
Okay, so right now you don't really have a.
I would not say, I have not said, okay, I'm going to put a 30-day maximum on it. But now that you've asked the question, I will look into it.
Okay, all right. So you're, part of your platform is strong on safety. It's a big deal in your platform. So, considering the history of bias against Black folks
Yep.
In this city and nationwide, policing and the judicial system, will you prevent your fight against crime
Yep.
from continuing that dynamic?
I appreciate the question. And I will just say, and maybe all 5 candidates are saying the same thing right now. We got to get tough on crime. We got to arrest drug dealers. And actually, one of the people leading the city right now is saying, let's arrest all the drug users. Let's get really tough on holding them accountable. So this is not just language coming from me. This is language.
You're right. You're right. I'm not disputing you.
So here's how I think about it. And I started the whole conversation off on like my commitment, and my commitment is to serving the community, providing opportunities for every child, early childhood education, job training, housing. Like I built my life on serving community, and so I want no kid to ever even think about anything other than their dreams and fulfilling their dreams. And so first we got to prevent. That's how you prevent crime from ever happening. Prevent those bad interactions that we all know about, right? Like just not even a philosophy, not even a thought. But then you can have reform, which we've done a lot of reforms in the police department, with public safety. I believe you can have both. But it's not easy. I'm not saying that there aren't going to be those bad apples. We know a lot more than just a few bad apples over the last number of years, right? For a long time. And the people that I went out on patrol with were people that have been trained differently, that have a commitment to community, that in many cases look like the communities, look like Viz Valley community, look like the Chinatown community that we were patrolling, that look like the Bayview community that we were patrolling. And that's how you find the balance. That's why we need to be recruiting officers that look like the communities that they serve, speak the language of the communities they serve. And I think that's how you get better policing.
So do you have a plan, for example, to recruit Black people?
We have to get we got to go to City College. We got to go to SF State. We got to go and make sure that being a police officer is not a bad thing. It should not have to be a bad thing. It should be something that it's a noble profession, which I know right now it is not considered that. So we have to push for it to get back to some sort of level where people want to go do that. Just like people want to go be firefighters. We got a firefighters town hall tomorrow. We got a debate. They got a 90% approval rating, right? And so we go recruit in community. That's what we have to do. We have to recruit from Viz Valley. We have to recruit from Chinatown. In Chinatown, I use this as an example because I think it's maybe one of the only places that's really doing this well, where the officers walking the beat are Chinese, and they speak the language. And they weren't doing a very good job on this until actually right around COVID. And I think there was born and raised San Franciscans who wanted to police in that neighborhood. And there is a sense of that they are part of the community. They're not coming in and policing. They're part of the community. And so that's what we have to get to here in Viz Valley.
Okay. On your website, you talk about, and I don't know if I read this correctly, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you're going to keep first time offenders out of the Tenderloin.
So this is what I mean about getting tough on drug dealers. 810 people died of overdose in San Francisco last year. We're on pace for well over 700 this year. What I want to do is when you are arrested for dealing fentanyl, I want to work with, you can't as mayor dictate, but I would like the DA to push for and work with judges as a condition of your pre-trial release. I want an ankle monitor put on, and I want stay away orders and search conditions put on as you're waiting for trial. It's tough, but so is what we're seeing on our streets, and so is the conditions that we are. These people are feeding poison and preying upon people, and so I want to send a message that you don't come to San Francisco to deal drugs. And so, as your pretrial release, you have an ankle monitor on, and the stay away order is for the neighborhood you were caught dealing. So if it was in Tenderloin, you can't go back to the Tenderloin. If it's in Soma, or if it's in Mission, or it's in Viz Valley, you have to stay out of that neighborhood until your trial. And then if trial, you're good. Right now, we do this, but we only do it if you don't show up for your trial. Then we ask for maybe. Typically, it takes 3 or 4 arrests for the DA to ask for an ankle monitor. That's the difference. I want to get tougher. By the way, it's not backed by just law enforcement. It's also backed by behavioral health experts. And I want to send a message to drug dealers that you don't come to San Francisco to deal drugs. And it's tough, but this city is now known as a place that you can come and deal drugs and get away with it. And that just won't stand with me as mayor.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. So we've touched on the mental health crisis. In November of 2022, you may remember the man that went to 7-Eleven and beat up a few people there, and then beat another to death. And we have that not just in the TL, but here, people wandering around, suffering mental health crises. So the question is, what specifically in Visitacion Valley and our issues? You know, if you go on a neighborhood, you'll get people talking about somebody jumped out at them, or there's somebody walking around talking to themselves, muttering or whatever. And there's a lot of fear involved. And so my question is, specifically for Visitacion Valley, what would you do to deal with this mental health crisis?
Right now, if you become homeless in this city, you quickly can become addicted and mentally ill. It's a lot of what we're seeing. A lot of people become homeless for economic reasons, but then they quickly slide into a state of mental health decline and addiction. And so let me just go back a little bit on the mental health and the drug stuff, because I have a plan that we're going to stand up 1,500 shelter beds in the first 6 months of my administration. And I believe we need shelters all over the city, in every neighborhood, not just in the Tenderloin, not just in Soma, not just in Viz Valley, but every neighborhood.
Communal living?
They will be a mix of small site shelters that would be women only, family only, individual adult. Like it'll be a mix of units. Some will be communal, some you'll have your own door. I built shelter at 33 Goff Street, got it done for $34,000 a unit. Right now, taking care of somebody on the street adds up to close to $75,000 per person for anybody that you're seeing out here suffering for mental health, homeless out here in Viz Valley. That costs you, the taxpayers, $75,000 a year per person. So I want to get people into shelter quickly so they don't fall into this decline which happens rapidly. So I want to make sure that you're not going to be able to stay in tents anymore in our city. You're not going to be able to stay on the street, but we have to offer shelter bed. We have to offer homeward bound tickets for people that are not from here, so that they can go home safely. But then, to more specifically your question, we need to build more mental health and drug treatment beds. We can do so at places like SF General and other hospitals around the city. There is space for it. The staffing is probably the hardest part, but we're spending over $700 million a year on our behavioral health system, and we're not building enough mental health beds. So when somebody is struggling outside this door here in Viz Valley, there needs to be a place, and there needs to be a trained clinician that comes out. You call 311 or you call 911, you say, okay, and goes to my point. It does not have to be a police officer that comes, right? It can be a trained clinician. It can be a hot team. But then there needs to be a bed to take them to, or at least a 24/7 crisis center, so that we can quickly respond to these incidents in Viz Valley and then bring the people to that 24/7 crisis center. And then, if needed, and now we can do this with SB 43, you can mandate treatment. You can mandate treatment, but you have to have the beds. And that's why, there's a lot of tough talk, like it's all the, if you're on welfare, you should be drug tested, right? You can't do that if there's no beds. And that's, this tough talk on the drug users and the mental, those that are suffering from mental illness. We forgot to build the beds.
So you agree with, if you're on GA, you should get drug tested?
Here's how I answer that question, because I think it's a tough. I mean, the mayor put that on the ballot for just pure politics to act tough. The day before, I heard her on KQED talking about how it wouldn't be able to be implemented because there's no beds. So you can drug test, and that's fine. Let's hold people accountable, and let's try to get them the help that they need. So I support that. But right now, it's not feasible because there's no beds. So it's a moot point. It's a political point. It's a way for somebody to, look tough.
Right, but I'm asking you about what you
I think we should hold people accountable. Okay. But I don't love demonizing people on welfare.
So would you do it, or if there were the beds, would you do it or you wouldn't do it?
I would, as mayor, I would do it because it's been passed. The voters passed it. So yes, I would do it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was.
By the way, I don't know what it passed, but it passed pretty handily, and we all voted for it. So now, it's amazing that initiative, because it's going to cost a lot of money. And let's focus on building the beds. So what I do believe in, for sure, is we need to mandate treatment for people. So whether it's people on welfare or whether it's people out on the street, I am for, if they cannot take care of themselves, I am for mandating treatment. So I'll get a little stronger and say, yes, I do support it. But I thought it was cynical and it was a political thing that happened.
Okay. So if, in terms of treatment and expanding treatment, would you expand Walden House, or would you use other?
I think we got to expand all. Like it's not a once again, to your shelter question, it's not a one size fits all. I'm all for what Salvation Army is doing. Sorry if I'm not talking into the mic. Salvation Army, like, I think there should be sober only living. I support Matt Dorsey and other supervisors saying 25% of supportive housing should be drug-free, alcohol-free living. I think Salvation Army, having detox facilities and places where you are sober, absolutely. And so we need to expand all of these options. And once again, it goes back to, forget whether or not you want mandated treatment, not like, it's cost effective to get people into treatment, get people into shelter, and it's really important, not only for them, but also for our community. So you're not having people popping out of doorways and scaring young kids and families.
All right, we're about to go to questions from the audience. Before we do, I want to talk about a little bit more about housing and rent control. Are you for upzoning, or what is your position on upzoning?
I believe we need housing all over the city. I've said I support 6 to 8 stories along commercial corridors. I want walkable, livable neighborhoods. I believe there is a lot of opportunity for us to build more housing downtown, more housing Candlestick Point, along the water. I'm not for 30, 40 stories along the beach. You know, I got, you know, if I gotta tell you, if my wife was here, she'd be out that door so quickly. No, I can't believe you all are still here. Look at you.
You're so
You're
you're so engaging.
yeah.
We're riveted. Gotta love it.
It was kind of cute. No, I'm
Yeah.
you. Oh, see,
Right, but
we
it's
just-
an hour.
It was.
We have 15 minutes to go.
We had down 8, but I'm happy to go till 8:15. It's an
Oh,
hour for everybody.
Yes, an hour. Yeah, hour
Okay.
for everybody.
Great. I'll go for 2 hours. Let's keep going. So, okay. So I've said clearly what I want to make clear, though, and this is not something anybody can tell me in planning at the state level, at the city level. When you talk about upzoning 6 to 8, the question is the density bonus on top of that, can that go to 12, 14? No one can answer that question. So when I say 6 to 8, I mean 6 to 8. Now, what I have seen with 423 that just passed, it means planning is going to go much quicker, which is a good thing for getting more housing built in our city. But I don't know if we should always be celebrating the state coming in and taking control over. I think that should have been the job of the supervisors and the mayor to make sure that we got housing built more quickly and not taking 1,100 days on average. It takes longer to build housing here than any other place in the state. That's unacceptable. Now, 423 helps us speed that up, but then you still have to go through DBI, Department of Building and Inspections. 600 days on average for that permit to come through. Absurd, unacceptable. That department, I think more than 10 indictments by the FBI. Like, City Hall is broken. It's ineffective and it's corrupt. And by the way, don't ask me, everybody running says the same thing. The only difference, Pastor, is that they've all been in office for nearly a decade or more. One of my opponents said, oh, this is decades in the making. Well, that person's been in office for more than a decade. And there's bigger budgets every year, but there's more excuses every year. And then they blame the bureaucracy that they built for their failures. And so housing and getting more housing built is crucial. It's why we have an affordability crisis. I'm really this is beautiful. This house, we can do more of this. I built housing at 833 Bryan, 145 units. We got it done on time, under budget, with good paying union labor. I handed this model to the city, and they haven't done anything with it. Although today in the newspaper, there's an article about the Housing Accelerator Fund, who worked with us, has now taken on the second project at Valencia, 135 units of senior housing. The type of housing that we need more housing for seniors, for our workforce, for middle class, moderate income. That's what my housing is going to be focused on. I'm confident that we can get more housing built because I've done it.
As mayor, this is my last question before they come. Will you expand rent control? And if so, how?
Well, first off, it's a sate issue. Rent control, the issue up at Casa Hawkins, is a state issue.
I don't know about that.
Well, that's
San Francisco's rent
no.
ordinance.
You can't. You have to be. You're dictated to by the state. But I believe in the rent control that we have right now. I think it's kept a lot of people housed, a lot of low income and people that would otherwise not be able to afford to live here. So I fully support what is in place now.
All right, including the attorney's fees that people facing eviction.
That's in place now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're supporting that.
Yes.
All right. Are you? Okay. All right, this is Russell.
A series of rapid fire questions. The questions will be somewhat.
Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate it.
Russell Marine, part of VVCU. So Edith here is going to kind of signal at about a 1 minute mark. So these are just going to be quick, you know, high point type questions, okay, from the audience.
Great.
Okay, so we're going to start off with, okay, you spoke about community policing. If elected, is there any plan to restore community officers in places like Sunnydale and Potrero Hill?
I want officers walking the beat. I want officers on patrol in neighborhoods that you all get to know, that people know and see on a constant basis. But we got to have a fully staffed police department to do that.
Thank you. You spoke about some organizations you have supported or created in District 10, yet many of these, if not all, are in the Bayview. Sunnydale is part of District 10 and is often referred to as District 10.5. If elected, will you ensure funding programs like college readiness and workforce development make it here?
Yes. No, listen, I named two groups that are right here in Viz Valley. So I don't really accept the premise that haven't been engaged here, but can we do more? Yes. And you have my commitment that I will.
Thank you. This is kind of maybe a follow-up to that. If elected, how will you work productively with the current District 10 supervisor?
I already have a really good relationship with him, and I will continue to have that. And whoever comes next, you have my commitment as mayor that on day one, I say this to everybody, I'm going to take office on January 8th, 2025, at noon, 1 o'clock. At 4 or 5 o'clock, something's going to go wrong in San Francisco. Something's going to go wrong. And I could easily blame the person that was in the seat before me. I'm not going to. It's going to be on my watch. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm not going to be throwing people under the bus. I'm not going to throw supervisors under the bus when things go wrong, or a DA or a police chief. That's going to allow me to work well with all the supervisors, whether I agree with them 10% of the time or 90% of the time. I am here to serve you, the residents and the taxpayers of San Francisco. And that means working with your supervisor, and I will do that well.
Thank you. San Francisco just added Vietnamese to the language access ordinance, but our supervisor's newsletter and San Francisco police websites don't provide translation to our diverse immigrant community. What will you do to provide language access?
I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. Like, let's expand access. Let's work on that. I would work with community here. I've worked with community groups to make sure that, and this is what I talk about policing, I talk about firefighting, and I talk about representation at all levels of my administration. There's gonna be representation at all levels from all community. And so if there's an issue like this that you're bringing up, let's go get on this. This should not be an issue with the AI technology. I mean, we're the center. Like, this should be easily fixable.
I'll do a quick follow-up to that question because to the mic. Just any quick thoughts on language access in general, knowing that Visitacion Valley is a very diverse community with different language abilities. So how would you work with Visitacion Valley to help our community?
All services of my administration should be in all the languages that are spoken out here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you support reparations for African Americans in San Francisco, and how would you do so?
I talked to the D10 supervisor about this, and I talked to actually the whole reparations committee about the leaders of the committee. And I actually talked to somebody as I walked in. Education, got to be key. An apology. I think we did that, the supervisors, so I supported that. The financial thing where we take it on alone is not something that I think is feasible.
Thank you. Okay, this was a good one last time around. What are your thoughts on keeping or firing certain department heads?
So, and Pastor, I'm trying to stay true to the don't say anything bad, so I'm not going to say anything bad about any other candidates. All I'm going to say is I'm not applying to be on next season's Apprentice, okay? Telling you all the people I'm going to fire. It's not how I operate. Day one of my transition, I'm going to sit down with every department head, every major department head, and I'm going to say, okay, do you want to be here? Like, there's going to be a new era of accountability, And do you want that? There's some really good people inside City Hall, and then there's people that need to go, and they know they need to go. And I think you should be respectful in that as mayor. And all I would say is the calling for the firing of that police chief. We have a morale crisis in public safety and our police force. That call did not help. It's actually created more problems. And so for political gain, one of the candidates did that. And I think caused more public safety issues and more morale crisis at our SFPD.
Thank you. What would you do to deal with the misuse of funds for homelessness programs?
We have 248 nonprofits that get funding for housing and homelessness. A tipping point, which I am the only one in this race that has held nonprofits accountable. The only one. At tipping point, there's about 17 groups that work on housing and homelessness issues between San Francisco and Oakland right now. And I'm not on the board of Tipping Point. I'm not involved in Tipping Point anymore. I stepped down. But are there more than 17 good groups? Yeah. Are there 248? No. There are no metrics built into many of these contracts. Right now, those 248 nonprofits can go get funding from 6 or 8 different departments, and they all contract separately with that one nonprofit. And they don't even know they're contracting with them at some point. So I'm pulling contracting power out of those departments. We're gonna have a centralized unit of experts that are gonna do all contracting. Every contract is going to have a metric, KPIs, key performance indicators that we're gonna measure their results on. I'm telling you, if you all want someone to hold contractors accountable or nonprofits accountable, I'm your person, because we just had booming budgets for the last decade. And all 4 of the people I'm running against, they just kept rubber stamping grant after grant after grant. Now they're all saying, let's audit all the nonprofits. And let's audit on day one. You can't audit a nonprofit if there aren't metrics built in. So I ask you, why didn't they do that while they were in office? I've done it for the last 20 years, and I'll do it as your mayor, and we will get much better performing groups. We will fund those that are high performing, and we will cut the ones that aren't.
Thank you. We have 2 more. Let's say you arrest the criminals, drug dealers. What happens next? Will there be a revolving door?
I mean, no. I mean, we can't go back to 80s, 90s style. Lock everybody up. We know that doesn't work. But we also know that no consequences doesn't work either. And how we know that is we all see the images on TV. We all have seen the smash and grabs and the rampant thefts of the organized retail thefts. There is, once again, there's a balance here. We've got to find the right balance. And if there are no consequences, guess what? We're going to see a lot of politicians going all the way back to, let's round them up, let's arrest everybody. And it can't be that way. We need absolutely there needs to be consequences. I've talked about my focus on drug dealers, but let's get people, there's gotta be consequences, and then let's job training, education. And so this is my whole life's work, is making sure that no one gets into that situation, but if they do, then there's pathways for them to get back and be productive members of our community.
So last question, this is a personal question, I believe, from someone in the audience. I need housing. If I don't secure some soon, I will be forced to move out of the state with my daughter. Help me.
Email me, or if you want to come up and tell me, or email me, Daniel@daniellurie.com. Some of the groups that I know very well work on family housing for people not necessarily, it could be in San Francisco, could be outside of San Francisco. And I'll be happy to put you in touch with some great nonprofit leaders that I know that help house families specifically.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the rapid fire session. I'm going to turn it over to the pastor.
Oh, we're doing, you all get to switch.
All right, so just a couple more questions.
Oh my God, this is.
Oh yeah, I know it's dragging on forever.
This is really, you all are intense. This is good. You're getting me ready for the debate tomorrow morning.
I'm sure you don't need any more help. Homeward Bound, what is that? And what is your position on it?
So Homeward Bound started actually during the Newsom administration, where if someone was struggling on the streets, they're homeless, and they had a loved one that picked up a phone call and said, "I'll take you home. I'll take you back." We paid for a bus ticket. We gave them food, and we bussed them back to their home. I think we did it over 10,000 times. There's always a lot of talk. Oh, everybody busses their homeless to San Francisco. Well, we've been doing it for a long time. During COVID, it really got cut for obvious reasons. The mayor has talked about now recently going all in on it. I think every candidate running for mayor is saying, let's double down on it. It's a program that works, and I would double down on it as well.
Okay. Transit First. What is it, and what is your position on it?
Means we want people using public transportation. We want to make sure to get as many people out of cars as possible. We should be a transit first city, and I commit to that policy. But right now, public transportation's got to be clean. It's got to be safe. It's got to be reliable. It's got to be on time. And there's some lines that are excellent, and there's some lines that are not. And I talk to a lot of students that take it to and from school. Harassment happens often happens. Elderly don't feel safe riding it. That's a problem. We need more ambassadors riding those buses. We need to make sure people feel safe getting on it. We need a comprehensive transportation plan. And that means not pitting people against each other, not pitting those that ride bikes against those that ride cars, those that ride transit against those that want to stay in their cars. We're never going to get everybody out of their cars, but I want to get as many people out of the cars that gas-powered cars into EVs as possible. But we don't have any charging stations. Like we want everybody to go to EVs, but we don't have charging stations in Viz Valley. We don't have them anywhere in this city. And yet there's money sitting at the federal government level that we could have been drawn down. So I've talked about having 5,000 EV charging stations all over this city. We got to encourage that if we're going to, if people are going to stay in their cars, which many are. But let's get as many people on transit as possible.
So are you, when's the last time you took the bus?
I took it this morning.
Regularly or every now and then?
I'm trying to ride it more, but when you are going, I'll tell you, I was in the Mission at 4:00. I was in,
right.
And I got 2 kids. I got to get my kids out to.
That's what I understand.
Okay. Well, you, Pastor, you are a good interviewer because it was a little accusatory. I got Crocker Amazon. I'm out there all the time with my 10-year-old. My daughter is in ballet at SF Ballet. I drive them to school every day, and I still do. Obviously, it's summertime, but I'm going to as mayor, and that's my 15 minutes, my 20 minutes with those 2 kids. I'm not giving that up. And when you're running a campaign, it's tough to get on transit, but taking the 49 in the Mission, I took the streetcar, the F, this morning. I got to tell you, I took the streetcar from Van Ness, kind of near Castro, to the ferry building. A lot of tourists getting on, and a guy passed out high out of his mind, and that's the image. And by the way, it didn't smell good in there, and that's the image that our tourists are seeing. Okay, so we got to make sure that our historic streetcar is clean and you feel safe riding it. That's what our tourists are seeing. That's what your next mayor saw. Like, it's not what we want. And so we have a lot of work to do, but I'm committed to making sure that Muni works for everybody, because you can't be a world-class city without a world-class transit system.
Okay, and my last question.
He said that already. Didn't he say that already?
No, I said 2 more questions.
No, he said that was last. But by the way, I'm in. I said I'll stay here all night. Let's go.
You're for the current rent ordinance that's existing. Do you own property, residential property in San Francisco?
No, I own my home. That's it.
That's it.
Yep.
All right. So, all right.
You got one more?
Nope.
You sure?
Nope, but I'm drawing conclusions. So I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate
Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. I really appreciate you. Oh, thank you. Closing statement.
Oh my God, there's more. Are you
It's up to
okay?
you.
Aren't you all tired? I ain't tired. I go all night. I got to tell you. So I'm born and raised here, right? I said that, but you think, oh, I know this city. I learn something new every day. And this city, when we're at our best, is the greatest city in the world. And we're not at our best right now. We all know this, and that's all right. We're going to come back. I want downtown. I want everybody in this neighborhood to want to come downtown again. I want everybody in the East Bay, South Bay, everywhere to think, okay, I'm coming back to San Francisco. But then we got to also think about our neighborhoods. We got to make sure Leland is thriving and small businesses can open quickly and easily here and not go through permit, can't say the H word, with the pastor. So it's got to be easy. And so I have a plan to make sure that small businesses get up and running quickly. Shot clock put on. So if you apply for a permit, the city's got 30 days to get back to you. If they don't, you can open up your small business on Leland. So I am committed. Listen, I'm committed to you all. You're not going to see a mayor who has worked harder than me since I'd say maybe Diane, maybe Willie. You're going to see me walking the streets. I'm going to be in this community. I'm going to be in every community. Something happens good or bad, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there, okay? And no one's outworked me during this campaign, and no one will outwork me as mayor. And I want to serve you all. I don't want to go do anything else after this. I'm not using this as a stepping stone. I'm going to be your mayor for 8 years. Then I got to tell you, I'm out. I'm out. And so I hope you got a sense of me tonight. I care deeply about our city. I want it, all of us, and I want all of our kids to be proud to be San Franciscans again. And so with that, I'll let you go. Vote Daniel Lurie, number 1. In October and November, you get the mail-in ballots. So thank you for your time, Pastor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.